The media do not like silent organizations. This was one of the messages I took away from the roundtable with journalists who cover the topics of space exploration. The roundtable was the last event of the 72nd International Astronautical Congress that took place in Dubai at the end of October. The roundtable was meant for people who work for space agencies, private space startups, and research and student projects. However, this advice can be used pretty much in any industry. Please note that this advice will be useful for those who are beginning their work in public relations. For example, if you are volunteering as a media liaison for a science project. This video will first address how to make sure that journalists can easily interact with your organization. The video then shows parts of the conversation discussing how to write a good news release. Finally, the video discusses what makes the news interesting to a wide audience. Please treat the text at the bottom of the screen as my notes from the roundtable. Senior staff writer for Space News, Jeff Foust, explained what organizations should do to make contacting them easier for journalists.
One, be proactive rather than just reactive. Reach out to us when you have a story or want to make sure that your point of view is getting heard on a particular issue. Don't just wait for us to contact. Two, when we do contact, please respond. Even if all you have to say is no comment, getting a no comment is rather than just hanging there waiting for you to return my call or email. Finally, if you are a company or organization, have some, just some nice centralized information about who you are, what you do, who your press contacts are on your website to make it easy for us when we do want to reach out to you, to be able to reach out to the right person at the right email or phone number. Just sort of, it seems like a very simple, practical thing, but you'd be surprised how often it's difficult to figure out who the point of contact is at a company when I've got a fairly straightforward question and I'm on deadline to get a response.
Russian journalist Anastasia Stacey Medvedeva advised that startups should plan to have a person in charge of public relations from the get-go.
If you have funding and you are able to do this, and there are people who can't speak or don't have media fright, please make them a spokesperson. Because as Jeff said, sometimes it takes hours on LinkedIn to find anyone who will respond because you're the media and most people can't talk to the media.
If, for example, you are a PR agency representing a space agency, like that is the case here, you probably want to be, if they're not going to provide regular mission updates or comments, then maybe be active on social media and provide regular updates as to what's going on.
Participants in the roundtable seem to have somewhat strong feelings about the news releases they are receiving.
If you're releasing press releases, please don't think that you have to be boring. They do not have to be boring. They have to be fun. Please think of your work as super exciting, because if you make it sound exciting because you know why it is exciting, I sometimes don't. And I have to find that excitement in your work. But it would be easier if you could give that little cherry on top for us sometimes, because we dig hard and we work a lot, but if you help us, we're going to be very grateful.
Well, I can speak from a UAE perspective. They're they're very technical. They provide an angle that is probably something that, if, for example, some of the new, I don't want to name a news organization, but some news organizations in the Middle East do actually copy-paste press releases. They're not changed much. So the problem with that is because the space agency and the space centers are sending out press releases that are so completely, the general public would not understand it. They would not understand some of the technical parts of, and the very specific scientific parts of that mission. No one is reading that story. The challenge that now I'm facing is because I am the only one that's based in the UAE that's doing it. I have to go through that press release, and somewhere in the middle of that press release, or probably towards the end, there's a very interesting angle that I could take, and it's probably the most important part of the story. So maybe put that, rediscover, refocus what could possibly be the best way to tell your company, your space agency's story, And you would probably get a lot of exposure for your client that way instead of taking whatever the space agency tells you and putting very technical stuff on top.
Even for us in the industry, I think when we write, we should simplify, like, the technical terms and the jargons and all of that, so that an average person can actually understand what we're talking about.
Yeah, I would say from my point of view, the press release can be the start of an article. It's not the article itself. We're not going to take the press release and just post it up on Space News. There are, blogs, sort of sketchy websites out there that do that. But, I look at the press release and it forms the basis of the article. I may follow up with the company or organization to try to get some clarity, try to get some additional information, go reach out to other people for comment, try and put whatever you're announcing in the press release into a broader context, or provide some historical background, that all that goes into the story. So the press release can be the trigger for the story, but it's not going to be the story in and of itself.
The roundtable also discussed how to get journalists interested in covering the news of the organization.
Build up a story. Don't just write, we built a satellite, but give a story to that satellite. 3, don't forget that there is not only traditional media, not only websites, not only newspapers and magazines, but you can go through social media. And today, if you're a young startup, the best way for you to promote yourself is to create your social media platforms and share there. Because there you can tag IAC, IAF, you can do all of the hashtags, and if your imagery and your texts are good, the media will come to you themselves, because we're seeking for stories anyways.
Journalists also explained what makes news interesting.
It's interesting when, for example, there's a mission updates, to be honest, for us has been very interesting because often there's sometimes radio silence, and to get an update as to what's going on with a certain program, that's interesting. If you're a startup that is doing something exciting and would add to the space sector and, it's something that people should read about, that's interesting. So, for example, this week, what we've covered, and I'm going to bring up Blue Origin again, great publicity for them, but they have this local company that they are working with, and we reported this week, and the lady, I guess I don't want to call it a startup, but it's a company, and I think it's relatively new, and she reached out to me on LinkedIn, so that, that's how I think a lot of the people in communication and marketing have been getting in touch with journalists here. And we had no idea, but Blue Origin is coming up with a localization strategy. So that company is helping Blue Origin with their localization strategy. We had no idea. I think that's very interesting.
In terms of what's interesting, what catches my, what looks like an interesting story, just sort of explain what sets you apart. There are, if you've been at some of the other sessions of this conference, you probably heard varying numbers, 100, 150, 200 launch vehicle companies. If you are the 201st launch vehicle company, and you're going to send me a story, you've got a pretty strong uphill battle to go through to get my attention, because it already seems to me like there are too many launch vehicle companies, far more than the most optimistic expectations the market can support. Why are you going to be different? Why are you going to succeed and beat out the 200 other launch vehicle companies out there? It's really sort of explaining what's different about you in terms of your technology or your business model or your market or your funding, whatever it is that makes you unique, that grabs my attention. That can make for an interesting story for our readers to explain that, yes, here's another launch vehicle company, but this one is different because of whatever. So that's, it's really being able to, concisely explain why you're different, why you get my attention, and then I'll start reading more and maybe get back in touch with you. I know I get pitched, far more stories than I could ever possibly write. So if I don't get back, it's probably because I'm swamped with a bunch of other stuff. But, to really maximize your chances out there, think about whatever it is with your company, your organization, your student project, what is it about it that really makes it stand out, that really makes it different, makes it important out there? And if you can communicate that to us, we can communicate that to our readers and our viewers.
I really like that answer, and I'm going to go to you, Stacey, for the last answer. But as a tip for all those startups, that's exactly how you pitch to your investors. The story is not very different pitching to your investors and pitching to journalists in that sense, that you have to show your uniqueness. So take these tips into consideration. Stacey, I'm going to give you the last answer before we close.
Please make sure that you make nice pictures of yourself, of your team, of your product. It's super important. And two, we like exclusive content. If you have exclusive content just for us, I'm pretty sure if you say exclusive launcher contact photos, videos, maybe not in that order, and you send it to Jeff, that at least will stand out in the email. So if you say exclusive video, interview, whatever, full access, only for you, we'll read it, and there's a better chance we're going to publish about it.
And this brings us to the end of this video. In this video, we learned that every organization or a project should have a spokesperson attached to it. The contact information of the spokesperson should be clearly stated on the website of the organization. We also learned that the spokesperson should always respond to inquiries from journalists, even if the response is no comment. We've learned that a good news release is written in simple language and emphasizes one or several news values, such as novelty and proximity. Updates on existing projects are also interesting news. New projects should stay active on social media and should promote their activities with photos and videos. Offering exclusive interviews to specific media outlets might be a good tactic for private companies. During the roundtable, it was mentioned that governments and, in my understanding, non-profits tend to avoid offering exclusive material because they do not have rights to limit access to information. This video was created by me, Yulia Medvedeva. If you like this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing. A 1-hour recording of the entire roundtable is available on the YouTube channel of the International Astronautical Federation. Please find the link in the description. Thank you for watching.